Welcome to the chapter conversation for this month, but with the Queensland chapter. We're very excited to discuss with you the impact of AI and micro-credentials on work-integrated learning. We have two guest presenters today, followed by a quick panel discussion. But before we do that, I'd like to acknowledge that we all gather from the lands of many people. I'm joining you today on the lands of the Kabi Kabi people. I have lived and worked on the lands of the Yarraga and the Turrbal peoples from the Gold Coast and Brisbane, and I was also born on the lands of the Mandangi peoples who have cared for this country for countless generations, and I'd like to honour their enduring connection to land, waters and community, and I'd like to pay our respects to the elders, traditional owners and custodians past and present. So today we're going to have a conversation about digitising WIL and how AI and micro-credentials are impacting the work-integrated learning landscape. This event aims to highlight how generative AI tools can be utilised to simulate real-life work scenarios, create interactive learning environments, and facilitate personalised learning experiences. Additionally, as the demand for specific skill sets grow, micro-credentials offered a targeted approach to education and training. We are also going to look at how these micro online courses focus on building specific competence to perform specific roles and the impact that they're having on work-integrated learning. First up, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Mahesh Kayathra is a Research and Education Officer at Central Queensland University, and he's going to be talking to us about integrating micro-credentials in work-integrated learning. Over to you, Mahesh.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good morning. And yeah, first of all, I quickly updated my team regarding my health situation, going through very bad pain in my shoulder and neck, actually. So thanks for considering that. I'll do my best here. And probably I will be a bit early after presentation, but I'm more than happy to discuss with everyone post-session because I'm passionate about micro-credentialing and in a one-on-one basis or whenever there's an opportunity to do so. Now, coming to my presentation, I'll focus on, in particular, my own experience as a lecturer at working in the Secure University and some other providers in Sydney, and where I actually mentored students in a capstone project, and also in a kind of social conversation that I had with the students who went out to do the internship with the third-party organizations. And I think that those experiences pretty much, can be related to what we are talking about today. Now, broadly, we all know what work-integrated learning is. I'm just trying to quickly catch up with what the Queensland government says about it. It is basically the curriculum integrated, though I highlight the work integrated with the industry needs. And as all of us know that due to the rapid shifting in the industry, universities worldwide are really struggling with to catch up with the curriculum or skills to deliver to industry in that aspect. So how do we catch up with that speed and transformation? So this is what I would relate as an integrated industry needs and work component through experience, right? We have been capturing, like as I said, being a lecturer, we have been given a specific set of assessment strategies and tools, such as rubrics, for example. So, and a lot of those actually aren't developed so well, I guess so. We need to do the improvement. And in terms of capturing the experience is in a kind of subtle component. So coming back to, other part, now TechShaw, the regulator body, obviously out of many issues, they identified a couple of, elements that issues involved in the current WIL. So the first thing is that experience doesn't contribute to achievement of the learning outcomes. So this is basically talks about so learning outcomes is a very tricky part that we all of us know that sometimes it is so generic. And sometimes it has to be generic because you can't tolerate specific. For example, if you're teaching for the digital transformation, you can't, it's very hard to teach for the university digital transformation for, say, for example, sugar industry. So how many students would be studying that course? It's not, it won't be viable and stuff. So sometimes learning outcomes are very generic, and that's where it kills off when you're assessing the people's specific skill set. Now, provided expectation of the role and outcomes of WIL are unrealistic in a sense, maybe there's a huge gap between how a provider thinks what a WIL experience or an internship experience would be and how the industry thinks it should be. So there's basically a gap currently, and who suffers from that is the students and the center of that. Now, coming to the third part, it points out about lacks capabilities which are key to learning outcomes. Again, I just said learning outcomes. I admit that when we write learning outcomes, those are very generic sometimes and it's not specific. So what people go out in the industry, they ask for specific skills. They're not interested with the, say, for example, in IT, they're not talking about artificial intelligence. They're not interested about that. What they learn in the industry would interested in, would you be able to write a very efficient prompts to solve their business queries, say, for example, right? So this is what the gaps are currently, and does not often use students' feedback. This is the big part, And in the end of the day, my experience is we give students feedback in the end of the internship or capstone project, and what happens to the feedback, how does it fit in the students' performance and how we communicate to them, or where would he or she go from that point onwards at a lifelong learning and practices, as well as how will that reflect onto our current programs? How would you modify that, tailor our what you call it, the things that the students we are expecting them to achieve through WIL. Next slide, please. And broadly talking about, done a bit of research on that part and see some highlights are what are the current challenges in the current WIL. And when I say the WIL, I'm very new to WIL, actually. I'm learning a lot from the group. Thanks very much, for being. I'm privileged to be part of the community here now. So yeah, I'm relating it to the internship model that we have in university and the capstone project. I think the both simulates what it is and the workplace scenarios. But coming back to the challenges is, assessment WIL can be unpredictable, social constructed nature of outcomes. What I'm trying to say is, in a social constructed, maybe I'll talk a little bit about that later, like Pierre Bourdieu's and a social capital theory and whatever. So what constitutes that, and how much are we able to capture onto that in assessment part? And that reflects students' variable experience. And like I said, experience, we have a bunch of experience theory, experiential learning and whatever, but so far I think it is really crucial, but somehow we lack a proper methodology or framework, whatever I would say. Is how do you capture the experience? How do you evaluate? How you assess it? And how do you let's say draw the point forward for the students to know for what next? And here is the feedback. As I said, feedback is very important, but I would say feedback rather than the feedback, I would say I quite often learn from the sports, actually. When the coach teaching the sports, and rather than giving feedback, they share the experience about how can you do better rather than showing them, right? The feedback can be purely textual or kind of stuff, and students may not really understand what do I do from that. Now, grading, yeah, obviously the first part is I brought it this point because being myself as a lecturer of supervising and mentoring students during the capstone courses, and sometimes it's very unfair. I personally I feel that, and we mark in the students in a group wise sometime, right? And here, so and a student who really performs in a group can be left out. So there are a lot of theories around that, and I think one of the best thing that we can learn from that grading from is a Google, I think Google Planet, they call it, one of the big research they've done and spent 3 years to see how people actually perform well in a group situation, right? So grading that part, so I'm better than someone in the class. So, rather than generalizing, rubric based or group assessment, I'm focusing on that part actually, rather than the, pass or fail, as GPA or actual mark might motivate them to further the part. Now, risk involved in this is very unfortunate, and through the social conversation that I used to have with the students and those who actually go out for the internship with the third party organizations, and they wouldn't really mix, they struggle to understand why am I here, what do I expect to learn from here, what do I take from spending 12 weeks of my time, 40 hours a week in these institutions. So sometimes I've seen the situation like students who are doing the networking specialist, let's say in a degree, MIT, whatever, specialized in network, and they expect to have a capstone, that's the internship based on the networking, right? So yeah, sometimes they're put into the unrelated task, and it happens a lot actually. Say, for example, web development, which has nothing to do with the network. So how do you fill those gaps, right? How do we meet the expectation? I mean, typically that, yeah, employer is getting what they want, but the students missed out and the university in the same way they missed out. So this is what I'll be covering in the further slides. Can you do the next one? Yeah, so this is where micro-credential comes. So we all know that the definition of a micro-credential, perhaps I picked up from one of the certifier, guides. They are in the field, so why not to learn from them as well? So going back to whatever research we study, literature says that micro-credential, like FATE, has a very good opening in a statement, and this one is the very specific competency to perform a specific task, right? So for example, if you're talking about the AI, I expect you to do a data analysis, analyze the set of data I give you, right? I don't want you to, I don't know what to deal with that. For example, let's say this is good actually. So for example, if I've tested with the students, when I was teaching, so you give a set of data, a number of, let's say 50 students, and their grade in English, science, and maths. And I ask students, okay, you interpret it. So I'm not going to tell them what data, descriptive analysis, or the regression. I don't tell that, and it's see how they go about it, right? So this is what I'm saying. So in that case, micro-credential, we talk about how would you measure the central tendency of a data? Yeah, you do that, and you prove that I have that skills. I know how to do given the data set, I know how to analyze mean, median, mode, or whatsoever in the central tendency. And there you go, you have a digital badge in the certifying that you do have an ability to do the descriptive analysis, so to say, right? So other thing is prior to rapidly enhance the expert in specific field. And this is what it is happening, right? We talk about cybersecurity, and I was talking to other social forums a couple of weeks ago. Now we're talking about cybersecurity. We talk about blockchain, and we're talking about quantum computing now, right? It is coming as a big wave, and how quantum computing can break every cybersecurity proposition that we have these days, because quantum computing has the speed and it can break the encryption very quick, right? So those sort of things we are talking about here. How rapidly can you build a set of skills and give out to the students and which they can help the business in some way, right? So next slide, please. So that is what ways, and now we think about, yeah, we have a traditional education system, which is good, you have a fundamental understanding, conceptual frameworks, and all those things, but they're not good enough, right? They're not good enough. It's like you're reading a history in how to fight a war and how people fought the war, and can you is the question, right? So where would that fit into? Yeah, the traditional part of what you call it is the thinking is, I know what you need. So this is our currently traditional model of developing curricula, and the professors think, or so I mean faculty thinks that we know what you're supposed to know, right? And where the industry says that I don't know what you're supposed to know, but I need this specific skill. If I wanted to get someone, it is here. And that's what I encourage students when I was teaching, and how the company like a Google, Microsoft, and Amazon hires people, right? And I will just share a quick, I don't know how it relates to, but some few years ago, I had a chance to attend one of the seminar launched by LinkedIn in the business chamber of commerce in Sydney, and Department of what small industries. And in the end of the day, and I asked the facilitator from LinkedIn and said, and he was a friend of mine actually, responsible for the Asia Pacific region. And I said, Michael, what sort of people do you hire in your company? And the answer he gave me, I was shocked. I was really shocked. What the answer he gave me was, Mahesh, we hire the people who knows how to ask a good question. We don't need people who can give a solution, because we have our one framework, we have our one standard. So as long as, and we have a good people around there, we need more people who can ask critical questions, and we can build a project around that, solution around that, and that can be our next line of products, so to say. So see, this is what the industry thinks, and this is what the discrepancy in what we think as an education provider. And by the way, currently I am involved in developing 2 micro-credentials, and that will be the digital badge will be given by Sikkim University. And those micro-credentials are on decarbonization and emissions, right? So from yesterday, today, and tomorrow, there's a big event happening in Mackay, Queensland Mining and Engineering Technology. And today is a big day around the big decarbonization. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend it because of my pain. And yeah, so those 2 microcredentials will be pitched in today to the industry, who now will have to comply with decarbonization regulation of the government. So it will be pitching as an early marketing campaign, and this micro-credential would be co-badged with or co-designed with the industry specific, like the Greater With Sunday Alliance and the Regional Center of Excellence, and a bunch of big buddies here, right? So that is very specific micro-credential. Do you know what the scope is? Which industry are you in? In a value chain part, if you want to supply for a BSP, if you're on the, kind of your truck driver, you are a utility van, what sort of compliance do you need to know? So this is what macro-credential is. You don't talk about the climate change, you don't talk about any big thing, and talk about what you need to know and how do you build a strategy around that. Now, coming back to this one, the
Excuse
good part
me,
of
Mahesh,
the,
I just have to give you a 2-minute warning. We have to keep to time. So you've got 2 more
all right,
minutes.
okay.
You-
So quickly then, sorry. So flexibility and customization, right? Depending on the, what you call it, the feedback looping, and what I would call it reinforcement learning. It will be, kind of agility. It goes through a skill recognition through the digital badging, motivates and influences, and it gives a credential for employability, a kind of sense of security in the saying that, yeah, this works. Motivation engagement, like I said, through the course, like, besides my degree, this is what I'm good at. So that is digitally signed, and that can go as a marketing tool for the students, and obviously align with the industry. So this is a big thing happening around that area as well these days. Next slide, please. So, and this is the paper, Ashcroft et al. And I highly recommend everyone to, if you have an opportunity, please read this paper. I would take it as a case study. Couldn't find anything in the Australian context, but this can be eye-opening for all of us. And basically, this case study, it is the university launched very massive research around that and involved more than 1,000 students and more than 100 employees, and it measured that where is the gap in current traditional way of education, and how micro-credential can be fill in the gap, and what's your understanding and how they perceive it as. And it shows that actually in a couple of things is alternative credential is raging, and certified competency is the way to go, right? And yeah, so perspective of students, employers, yeah, it has opened up what the student think about it and what the educator, quite different. Student thinks about how do I get the digital badges so that I can prove that I'm good at this, whereas the employer thinks more about assessment. What's the process do you adopt to certify that the student is competent? So there's a lot of things to work out at the provider perspective as well. Quickly, please. Next slide, please. And yeah, so quickly, so thank you. All right, so going by that part, I think one side of it is your current education system, traditional. Other part is a macro credential, and in between is something. And in the previous slide, sorry, I took more time. Yeah, so in that is a Bourdieu social capital theory is becoming more and more prominent in macro credential landscape. Please go through that if whenever you have time. Social capital theory. And now here is how do we go about it? So, we talked some scenario, but if I wanted to integrate it, where's the way to go? So obviously finding a couple of frameworks are good. I went through that. And one is the understanding by design. What it says is, tell me in one sentence, what you want to achieve out of this WIL program. What's your mission? Tell me in one sentence, right? And once you have that one sentence, your mission, and then how do you assess it? I'm not talking about assessment of the student. I'm talking about how do you know that it is working, that the program is working, and how do you know that it's not working? So there's assessment against yourself, not about the student performing, right? How good we are at that. And the third part is instructional, right? Okay, now you know that what you wanted to achieve, now what's working and what's not. And now you say, how can you do about some instructional aspect of that? And coming to another permanent theory I found was learning innovation. So it's a constructive alignment with John Biggs, so obviously, again, that focuses on the define a very clearly learning outcome, very specific, not generalized, one key specific competency. And teaching and learning activities experience, like then pedagogy supports that one, such as social learning, problem-based learning, co-ops cycle. That is a wonderful things to consider for micro-credential design, I suppose. And then again, the part is the assessment process. So yeah, so how do you combine and make that as a package? So those two are very, prominent theory. I find that a whole host of other different things, learning theories and learning styles and part. So broadly, these two gives us a good kickstart, I would say, if someone wants to work under macro-credential settings. So that's all from my side, I guess. So yeah, sorry, I missed a couple of slides in between because of time.
Mahesh, I'm so sorry that I had to rush you along. It was
Yeah,
very
sorry, that's
interesting, and I
okay.
appreciate you coming when you didn't feel so well. But we've still got Mina's presentation and the panel. So I'm quickly going to introduce you to our next presenter, Dr. Mina Jha, who's the head of technology and pedagogy cluster at Central Queensland University, who has a presentation about generative AI in work integrated learning. Over to you, Mina.
Sorry, thanks, Faith, and I appreciate that ASIN has given me this opportunity to talk about generative AI in WIL, as ASIN QLD Queensland chapter-led conversation. Without wasting or without going a little bit more into detail, let me start with what it is all about and a bit on to introduction to generative AI, and all of us have had a chance to understand or to see that what generative AI refers to, and we have created text, images, music, role play, and there are plenty more things, PowerPoint slides, videos, and we have been using, I mean, most of us we are using this generative AI, but they are just machine learning algorithms, and they do not come without bias. A bit on to the way it works so that we have an entire understanding of how actually generative AI works. And we all know that any artificial intelligence, the foundation is the data. And going back to 1970s, where AI was the term which was coined, to now it has taken a great a step ahead. So the first thing is the data collection. It is a large amount of structured, unstructured data. It is your videos, images, text, audios, and then pre-processing, which requires cleaning of the data for the modeling the trained algorithms. So machine learning algorithms plays the particular role and especially natural language processing. What it does is it doesn't understand what we have written or what we are writing. It understands the pattern. Right? It generates the output based on the seed data and the prompts we provide, and learn the pattern to produce a coherent kind of content. And then it fine-tunes the model. When I'm saying fine-tunes the model, ChatGPT 3.5 actually takes the data, what we enter there, to train its model. So we need to be very careful what we are entering there these days. If you would look into ChatGPT, you will see that it is written very specifically at the bottom of it that the data you are entering will be used for training. Please do not enter sensitive data, right? And then, of course, the deployment, and it fine-tunes it and then deploys. Deployment is quite an interesting thing because, and this is where WIL comes into play, that organizations are actually integrating large language models into their applications to make it more suitable for today's digitized world, including performance, efficiency, answering, repeating. Artificial intelligence is really good when repetitive tasks are being done. So if you ask them to repeat the same thing, it is very good at it and allows users to generate content, repetitive content on demand. So there are a number of examples, and I have just restricted myself to include 3 of them using your generative AI techniques. And it is your text generations, which is models like GPT-4 for chatbots. You can have content creation or image generation. Models like DALL-E, GAN for realistic images. See, the best part of it is that it is very persuasive, that whatever it delivers, it is very persuasive. And we as an academic, because we have learned it from the first principle, our understanding is we can identify where the bias, where it has created the bias. But as a student, where you are still learning, this is not so. What the content or what the text gets generated is students take it as a positive aspect of it. Music composition systems like MuseNet for composing music. So if I'm into Hindustani classical music, and if I give them some notes, it generates a real good composition, but it misses onto, the niche points which otherwise a trained musicians would play. Impact of generative AI, it is here to stay. No one is going to go away with it. Industries are using it. Industries, whether it is media, entertainment, marketing, education, everyone is transforming their applications around generative AI, and there are a lot of research going in this area. Automation of creative processes, and it is automating tasks. What tasks are being automated? That are being repeated repetitively, where the tasks are required. This is where generative AI comes to rescue and give us, free our time to do some creative thinking, creative tasks. Work integrated learning and generative AI, where do they merge together? And we said that, work integrated learning, the basic definition is combining academic learning with the real world work experiences. But how many of our students, they really get to go into real work integrated learning? Not many of us. The reason is there are restricted limited resources. Everywhere when we are talking about AI and all, it helps answering the question of optimization, how we can optimize that. So work integrated learning and providing practical hands-on experience to complement theoretical learning. Theoretical learning is what we do in the class. And then how we can make our students learn these practical hands-on. And this is where generative AI comes as a rescue, or it plays a role. And that is what? Simulation of real-life scenarios, creating realistic work environments, or interactive, developing engaging educational experiences. Meaning thereby, I should have, if I'm asking some questions, my generative AI avatar should pop up and tell me the answer. And if it is repetitive, and if I want to, get myself trained on some, for some interview, my generative AI should come as an avatar to train me. Instead of talking to a real person, it should be able to simulate that. And there are applications where I'll be talking about that when I'm talking about my 2 case studies. I'm very mindful of the time, Faith. I'll be wrapping it up because we do have to have a panel discussion. So personalized learning experiences and enhanced engagement, increased student engagement through realistic scenarios, hands-on experiences, of course, skill development. Skill development, and this is where your micro-credential and generative AI, micro-credentials and WIL they marry each other. So case study, there are 2 case studies I have placed into these lecture slides, these presentation slides, and one is coming from SimConverse, and the web address is being provided over here. It is fully automated communication skills training for the clinical workforce, and it is actually guided by simulation, best practices powered by purpose-built AI. It is, the details are, it is an interactive training to thousands of learners with the touch of a button. It is for the clinical workforce through scalable interactive training. So it is a role play model. So instead of if a clinician is going to, solve some problems, there are some role plays. And this one, SimConverse, is being developed and is being used by number of universities. And if you want, you can go on to SimConverse and look at the demo, and it is quite it is one of the, universities are using to embed it into their assessment. And it is absolutely, you can talk to the creator of this SimConverse, and they will able to help you. The details are sitting on the website. The second one is the instage.io. When I want to be in a stage, right? And if I am preparing myself for an interview and how to prepare myself to, address some people, what needs to be done, how I need to train myself, right? And it is this is another where you have got an immersive conversational simulations. You will see that on one side, it is an educational avatar, and on the other side, actually, it takes the information from you, and you will be placed, and it takes the control of your camera, and you can talk to the avatar and ask the questions, how an interview, to prepare yourself for an interview, or to prepare yourself for the conference or for a not networking event. The demo is up there. You can actually role play over there. So overview is just automate training for interviews, presentation, and skills, and students are using it to upskill themselves. Built for higher education institutions and career centers, and link is provided over here. Scalable training solutions, enhancing preparation performance of students in real-world scenarios. But the biggest challenge is how to incorporate generative AI tools into existing curriculum. And this is where I have as an academic for the past 25 odd years, I have found that, to take the first step is the biggest challenge, where to start from. And I have provided some steps, step by step, how it can be incorporated. I'm not going to go through that. You will have these presentation slides available if Faith provides it to everyone. So you can go through it. Is understanding learning objectives, selecting appropriate AI tools, and design AI integrated activities. Allow the students to use generative AI on your project-based learning and integrate into your assessment, but make sure that you allow them or foster ethical awareness, and then see that how students are doing. So you actually evaluate and iterate it back into your learning and teaching. The challenges and considerations we have is, of course, ethical considerations, bias in AI, a lot of bias. And I have got a lot of stories to say on bias in AI, but I'll keep it for the next time, as I'm quite mindful about the time. Accessibility, make sure AI tools are accessible to all students, and there are a lot of APIs that are being generated, which has been integrated into your generative AI. So embracing generative AI in WIL education, of course, it provides a very unique opportunity how the traditional, teaching and learning methods are transforming to integrate generative AI. So, and we are ready to, prepare our students with more real world skills and experiences using generative AI. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to take any questions, but I'm sure that we'll be having a panel discussion after this, and we will have a lot of questions to ask and, share with among us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meena. I do have some questions definitely about AI, but right now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our two guest panel members. First off, I'd like to introduce Professor Joanne Ferreira. As Dean Learning and Teaching Futures at University of Southern Queensland, Joanne leads the development and implementation of innovative learning and teaching strategies that actually have an impact on practice across the university. Her interests are systems-based change, environmental and sustainability education, and online learning pedagogies that enhance student experience and outcome. And joining Joanne is Dr. Ali Dolfikar, who is a clinical associate lecturer at University of Queensland, whose research interests lie in skills, sport, and performance research. So Mina, you're going to be a member, you're moderating the panel, so I'll hand back over to you.
Thank you, Faith. And it is, I welcome Dr. Ali and Professor Joanne Ferreira on this panel discussion. And I'm sure with their expertise, we will able to answer a lot of, or we'll able to understand, the impact of generative AI and how it can be used to enhance what we do in our work integrated learning, and how traditionally, from traditional to digitized, well, it is changing. So my first question would be probably, I throw it, what are the most significant impacts of AI on work integrated learning programs today? And I would like Professor Ferreira to take a go on to that one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mina, and thanks to both Mina and Mahesh for their presentations. And I think you've, between the two of you, covered off on a lot of the key points around AI and its impact across organisations, but also in relation to WIL. So the things that I would add around, I think we'll see a growth in the virtual WIL and in simulations. And certainly in our university, we have been running a virtual WIL program for the last couple of years that has been very successful and enjoyed by both industry partners and students because of the ways in which we can actually spread the opportunity for our students. We're a regional university, so they're able to get a different sort of opportunity in WIL than they would be able to get in their own footprint. If they're living in Goondiwindi, they might not be able to work with a really big organisation, but virtual WIL will allow them to do that. And then the other thing I think is around that, personalised learning and the use of AI tutors. Mina, you've just referenced a couple of those tools, so I think we'll see more of that work happening. But all of this underpinned by a massive need for upskilling. And while I think when we looked at something like when the internet came about, the upskilling that happened was huge. It was a big leap in kind of literacy for people. I think that we are going to need to see the same leap, but we're also going to have to keep learning in a way that maybe we haven't had to do with the internet because the technology itself is moving so quickly. So I think for universities, it's about upskilling both students and staff, and then also making sure that what we're doing through the WIL experiences is actually aligned with how industry is using AI as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, Joe, it is. There are two takeaways with what Professor Ferreira has said. It is upskilling teachers and students in the age of generative AI, how to use it, and what industry is doing with generative AI. See, industry is always at the forefront of adapting new technology, and education is the last one, but we need to come at the forefront. Thank you, Professor Ferreira, for picking that up. So and coming to the next one is, what are some best practices for integrating AI into WIL programs effectively? One is, of course, some of the points Professor Ferreira has said, but then I will throw this question to Dr. Ali. And what, are some best practices for integrating AI into WIL programs effectively? Thank you.
Thank you, Mina. I think Professor Ferreira really hit the nail on the head for this question as well. I think AI integration plans is going to be crucial, and I think you need transparency from the course coordinators or the school all the way through to the students. So everybody needs to be on the same page as to how AI is being used and when AI is being used. So we can't sort of hide the fact that AI is being used. And then I think the next step to that is, showcasing where AI is being used in the assessments and how those assessments, as to your point, Mina, is being built for their learning and to develop their learning. Yeah, so I think that's the key there. Is going to be transparency of the AI, potentially some literacy courses as well to sort of remove any fear of using AI. Because yeah, I love the internet analogy. You know, the internet used to be that dial-up sound we all had, and then it changed. And now AI, I mean, it changes on a weekly basis now. So I think there's some transparency and some upskilling needed there.
Indeed, indeed. So it is, you know, resonating with what Professor Ferreira has said, that we need to upskill our teaching force so that the Gen AI assessments can be incorporated, integrated into the existing curricula. So thank you so much, Dr. Ali. So the next question would be the main challenges in upskilling, reskilling our academic workforce, and what are actually the main challenges faced by institutions and companies when implementing AI into work-integrated learning. Thank you, Professor Ferreira, for taking up this question. Thanks.
Thank you, Mina. I think, you know, yes, the upskilling, but what is it that I think the challenge is, what is that upskilling? And at the moment, we're all focusing on prompt engineering, and we're talking a little bit about, and obviously we have to, that's going to be a core skill and competency, right? Making sure that we can write effective and efficient prompts that will get us the best possible response from the AI tools. So that's necessary, but I think figuring out what are the core AI literacies that we need to be building is our next big challenge. And I think we would be well served by thinking philosophically. So a field that, you know, often or is pushed to the margins in society, but I think we will see a rise in philosophical thinking, because we need that to help us to think through the ethical dilemmas and the social dilemmas. Massive impacts will come, I have no doubt, on workforces as AI grows, and how are we as a society going to manage those sorts of impacts? And those are all big philosophical questions. And then the other thing I think is again, a skill that we know is important, but is sometimes pushed to the side, and that is critical. I have no idea why my thumb just went up. My machine has a mind of its own. It must like what I'm saying at the moment. But the other thing is around critical analysis, because, you know, many you've mentioned the bias, you know, if we don't have our prompts well written, we will get an answer that might not work for us. So how are we ensuring that our students can think critically and critically analyse what is being generated? I think those are going to be core skills for us going forward. And how we teach them, I don't know. We just keep going and try the best we can.
That is the quite an issue these days, that if we are using, you know, generative AI to teach and to learn, and if we are learning with the bias, this is what we are going to give to the society. So, you know, our generation will go off very soon, who have learned from the first principle. So when I am using, you know, particular or generating some image, I can understand where the bias is coming from, right? Because I have learned it from the beginning. But the students, if they are just learning what is being generated using generative AI, this is what is going to go out in the society. And I always say to my students, there are three things. One is genetic engineering, the second is generative AI, and the third is quantum engineering is going to change the entire world. You may not, you know, but this is getting recorded. You won't be surprised if in, you know, 20 years ahead of time, you will see mermaid, you know, or we have got, you know, half man and half horse, or half man and half lion. You won't be surprised that.
You're starting to scare me now, Mina.
No.
And I think it's the AI that's putting Joanne's hand up. I see what you've done there. Can we just open the questions to the floor and see if anybody who's attending has questions for the panel?
Yes, Katie, you have a question.
I guess my question is about it's question, statement, thought, I guess, working in that true co-design and collaboration with industry. So in our team at the University of Southern Queensland, we've been co-designing virtual will projects that Joe referred to. And I think coming back to something you said earlier, Mina, that industry are really at the forefront. That is the case sometimes, but I actually think in this case, they're just as lost as we are. And I think, how can we come to that co-design space and be co-designing will opportunities where we're all kind of learning and exploring along the way? And we've certainly found that in some of our projects where, you know, coming back to more challenge-based will, where they're posing challenges in their business or opportunities they want to explore in their business that students can be kind of researching and looking into, and just wondering, again, not particularly a question, but is that an opportunity for Will to be doing both, I think, and bringing industry along for the ride in this space? Because I do think in a lot of ways they are just as lost as we are. Yeah.
Indeed, Katie, that is where I would say that it is about co-designing the curriculum. Because as in, you know, industry, we are for WIL, we really value the industry input we get. So employers actually, they can provide insight into the latest trends, tools, and skills that is being required in the Gen AI field. So what they are integrating, and then this will ensure that the curriculum remains relevant and up to date. But then your educational expertise as an academic, we can design the curriculum or the framework which integrates, you know, what employers require, and, you know, change it with pedagogical best practices, which can create effective learning modules. So it is basically collaborative development. We need to hop on to, you know, include generative AI in work integrated learning. It is not, we can't keep ourselves away from industry, what they are using. As I said, there are a lot of APIs that are being developed to, you know, integrating Gen AI into their applications. And one of the example is customer service, right? Generative AI app, you know, LLMs are being integrated into customer service. Gen AI in financials, in marketing, in sales, they are integrating Gen AI for simulation, in aviation. So it is a collaborative development. Thanks.
Thanks, Mina. Does anybody else have any questions for Joanne or Ali? I actually have a question for Professor Ferreira. How do you think the value of an AI produced will experience compares to an authentic will experience with an industry partner?
I think the question of authenticity is, you know, a really interesting one. And I think it depends on the data set that you're using, because I have no doubt that AI is capable of, or AI tools are capable of developing, because the data that they're using is real in a sense, right? So they can, I'm sure, develop experiences that are very close to the kinds of experiences that that we might have in our physical engagements. However, it all depends on what the quality of that data set is that it's utilizing to build that experience. But I'm doing a presentation in a couple of months on authenticity and environmental education, which is my field, and we talk a lot about place-based learning and learning in the real world and in real environments. And, you know, what are the kind of pros and cons of artificial intelligence in those kind of learning spaces as well. But, you know, I think that this is something we have created and we have the capacity to shape, I believe. And I think if we too fearful and put our hands up in the air. You know, the machine will eventually get to a point where it's able to generate a world that we may not like. And I think, you know, the Yuval Harari book, Homo Deus, he was talking there about how we have been collecting bucket loads of data for decades. You know, everywhere we go, we're filmed, we're tracked, we're traced. Everywhere we drive, every street we walk down, there's data being collected on us every time we open, you know, a platform and look at something. And now we have this massive amount of data for a machine to use. So I think that this is why I think there's big philosophical questions for us as a society. But also, if I can just say about micros, you know, if you look at the McKinsey prediction that came out last year around AI and its impact, they're actually predicting the death of multi-year qualifications. They didn't name universities, but that's our business. That's our bread and butter work, right? So I think we have an opportunity to really look at micros and utilize them to help to build that skills framework or a set of skills for students, and also utilize them to rethink how we function as, you know, we're very old institutions, hundreds of years old, medieval in our practices. And I think AI is going to kick us into the future, whether we like it or not. So I think there's big changes coming, and I hope they're positive. I hope we take the opportunity to make them positive.
I have feelings about Skynet. Chris,
Yes, well,
Queensland,
yes.
you've got a question. We'll go to you.
Oh, hi. Thanks. It was actually relevant to what Joe was just saying, because thinking about how AI can be used in WIL, and I was thinking, as I think Mina said, that there, and it depends on the data set, there's a lot of bias that AI is generating because of the large language model. So, and it could be something that university and WIL it can do that is relevant by having student projects that they have the time and they have the thinking capability to maybe identify potential bias in the AI solutions that are being, you know, generated by AI. That's just a question if anybody's tried that, or Mina, maybe you've considered that in your teaching and in your WIL. I was just wondering about that.
Indeed, Chris, I have actually identified a lot of bias when I'm using, you know, generative AI, especially when I'm generating images. Right. So if I am generating, you know, I want to have a traditional owner of land and I am asking them to generate some image. They all take the characteristics from American side. They don't integrate the characteristic from the Australian side, and they are quite different. Right? They're quite different, and it doesn't depict the traditional owner from Australia. It depicts traditional owner from America, right? So this is one bias, very clear bias, I can tell you. And I was trying to create some videos, you know, based on Indian accent, and I had to train the model. It wasn't to replicate myself. Right? I can't be talking in a British accent or a Canadian accent or any other accent. I am, you know, my origin is from India, so that is inbuilt, and I want to create myself there. I had to train it.
Right.
Right? So that was quite interesting, and you know how you have, you know, you pronounce words differently. Right? Sometimes H is, you know, silent, A is silent, U is silent. In Indian context, it is not so. So it was taking up, you know, some American accent. I said, no, I don't want that. I want to be, you know, let me create my avatar, you know. And then I had to train it. And this is where your critical thinking, because I know how Indian accent will sound like. If imagine I'm a person, I want to create an Indian accent and I don't know how it sounds like.
Yeah.
Where will I be?
Mina, thank you. Danielle, you've got a question. Are you able to come on? Because we're running out of time, and then I want
Sorry, I'll be really brief. I work at Griffith University. I'm a placements officer in the postgraduate space, and I just wanted to not flip the conversation, but coming more from a professional will perspective, what ways people are integrating AI, because this is a new space for me in regards to student processing, placements, tracking students in an operational sense, and how obviously before we get them onto WIL, how is it being used in that space, sort of the more back of house, behind the scenes kind of way where we're engaging with students pre-placement wise and during placement.
That's a great question.
Open to the floor. Don't know if I have anyone that's even doing anything in the AI space, but I know it will come to our world as well. Not that it may already be there, which is why I'm asking, because tracking of students, depending on their degree and entry, is a challenge. And I know that there's areas that I would like to improve, and I'd love to know what other colleagues are doing in that space within the placement space.
We're using it to do our meeting minutes. Does that help?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Oh, okay. That's good. No, it's just we've got different entry points for when students start and finish as to when, and because there can be quite a bit of flexibility in degrees, it varies between, say, domestic and international, for example, when they may commence their WIL placement if they're not in a more sort of undergraduate degree where it's more block placements and more finite timelines on when they have to complete certain courses and what the formulas are. So
is anybody else in the room using it in the professional processes and applications? Nope.
We're not, but I was going to say it sounds like a great student project, or it sounds like a great business startup opportunity.
Yeah.
It sounds like there are some administrators at Griffith aren't going to be too happy when AI catches up to that space.
Probably not, and we may not be either, because I would also like training in what is coming or what may hit, because obviously, as you've all said, it's within the academic realm and within industry already. It's just as Mina said before, education can be a bit behind, but I feel like there's levels of where it hits first and where it sort of just filters down. Anyway,
Great
that's my
question.
2 cents.
Danielle, so sorry we didn't have an answer for you, but I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah,
It's coming.
thanks.
Ali, do you have any perspectives to add to some of these conversations?
I really enjoyed the bias conversations that we're having, because obviously, yes, AI has got a ton of bias, but I've been finding that there's an AI that I use in the placements called RiffBot. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of it. RiffBot allows students to, ask questions or submit a reflection, and the AI will ask the student questions about their reflection. So essentially, it trains them on critical thought or critical inquiry. So while the bias is really negative, I have found a lot of students having a lot of enjoyment in trying to critically analyze the responses they're getting from the AI. So I guess one hand, the bias is very bad, but on the other hand, it's helping my students be able to, demonstrate critical thought and critical inquiry. So I'm on two sides of the fence on this bias camp. It's bad, but it's also been a secret blessing at this stage.
Right. That's interesting when you say that the AI is teaching the students how to think critically. Are they really teaching the student? So are the students learning from the AI, or is the AI teaching the students how to think like an AI?
That's a really good question. I think what RiffBot really does well is it frees up my time as an educator, but also frees up the students' time. So students can ask RiffBot a question, then RiffBot has an endless amount of questions. It will never stop asking questions. And so students get to essentially try out different questions. So when they ask, RiffBot, this is what I did today at the site, I did this exposure, it will come back with, oh, have you thought of this? And the students get to then respond to that. So I need to reflect more deeply on your question. Yeah. But overall, I'm seeing it as a positive experience for students at this stage. I have to investigate it.
Yeah, and a key element of work integrated learning is reflection. And we had a discussion, and I said, you have to reflect on your experience, and you can't use AI to do your reflection about your experience, but apparently you can. So I'm not pretending to know anything, but it is feeling like it's definitely upending work integrated learning and how we know it in the traditional sense. And, you know, we need to look at how we do feedback. Yes, so Joe's saying chatbots are going to explode. Cognit is University of Sydney. Did you want to share that, Joe, rather than me read what you wrote?
Yeah, sure. It's just adding to what Ali was saying, and I hadn't heard about RiffBot, Ali, so I will definitely go and have a look at that. But it sounds like it's a chat bot, and that, you know, I would imagine that it's got like you know, information around how to ask critical questions and do critical questioning, and then the students are asking questions, and it's deepening the students' learning by asking the critical questioning. And the Cogniti is similar. You can use it in a course, which is how Sydney's used it, to be an AI tutor for students. So you as the academic put all the information into the chatbot, and then students can go in at midnight and ask a question saying, I've just done this reading, I'm not sure I've understood it properly. I think I'm trying to answer my assignment question. This is what I've got in my plan. Am I on the right track? And the chatbot will actually utilize the data you've put in there to say, no, not really. You know, make sure you go and have a look at this reading as well, because it talks more specifically to that question you've just asked. So I think these will become good assistance for us as we move forward.
Or we don't need to put the data in anymore because the AI has access to its own data. And so this, I'm
Yeah,
being
but for
cynical.
universities, right, we're trying to control our intellectual property. So we're not working, like the platforms we use are driven by ChatGPT 4.0, but you know, they closed systems for us. So things like Copilot, and I noticed Mina or someone had generated an image using Copilot. So we're only using closed systems and teaching our students how to use the closed systems and teaching them about intellectual property. And the point that I think Mina made again, or Mahesh, around if we use AI, we are feeding the beast. We are putting our data in. So that's why we are putting closed systems, which are not used for training or any other purposes.
It is just to add on to that, one thing that when we are using Copilot, it is the data is not for CQ, it is the agreement signed that data will not be used for the training purposes, and within 30 days of time, it will be deleted from the server. It is not deleted from our side, it is deleted from the server. So we are quite safe to use Copilot, and that is why we encourage our academics and students to use Copilot.
Oh, thanks, Mina.
Yes.
Caitlin's got her hand up, and then we'll go to Jared, who's made an important point. So Caitlin.
Hi, how's it going? Thank you for calling upon me. Sorry, my camera's off. I just wanted to jump in because I'm a PhD student in a philosophy department, but I also am a placements officer in like a business school. And it strikes me like when we're talking about like the need that this is generating to like critically reflect and teach students how to critically reflect and to engage philosophically. Given that like in the philosophy departments, like in Australian universities, like we're always kind of under threat, like under different like government legislation around higher education, and just like how the sector is moving. I just wanted to give a plug to maybe like reaching out to your local philosophy department to just like explore collaboration opportunities, because I know that a lot of people who are already doing transdisciplinary research in philosophy are really at the forefront of like AI education, like critical thinking publications. But I don't know if like other staff are as aware that they can be of use in courses outside of the discipline, where like I know that philosophy educators sometimes teach into like science courses just for like a week to help teach like philosophy of science to students. Like I feel like things like that might be opportunities in the WIL space as well. But yeah, just wanted to kind of put that on the table. And thank you for all of these presentations today. They've been really helpful.
Thank you. Jared, did you want to make your point?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the inclusion and for the rich discussion. Yeah, look, I wasn't planning on sort of talking too much about it. I just thought I'd sort of leave a comment mainly around how I work at the business school at UNSW, and I've come over from the University of Sydney. I've been in the WIL space for quite some time, and I suppose I'm struggling to see any authentic uses for generative AI to create those sorts of experiences with business school students, and for that reason, it strikes me as something that is quite sort of discipline specific, where I can imagine, for instance, there being really effective and authentic simulated WIL experiences for medical students, or things where there's particular hard skills involved. And of course, like, the obvious one is kind of training pilots with flight simulators. But where we have to send our students into environments where there's more complex social interactions going on, and there's lots of sort of learning by osmosis, I think that is where it's really challenging for us to substitute, generative AI experiences or other sorts of simulated experiences with the real thing. I think we risk sort of shortchanging our students, but I guess I'm starting to sort of see a bit of a sort of divide where some disciplines might be able to adopt some generative AI in WIL more effectively than others, I suppose.
The panel have any response, Ali and Joanne?
Go ahead, Joanne.
Yeah, you go ahead, Ali.
I was going to say, Jared, I completely agree, but I think, the AI is moving so quickly and all the generative spaces are moving so quickly. I would be surprised if, in sooner rather than later, there's a generative AI that does fit into the business school. I know for me, with the X science and exercise physiology, the critical reflection bots, the simulators are really, really, they provide a really good experience, especially for students who are more rurally based. I'd be interested. I'm not sure what's out there currently, but I'd be interested to know what does come about for the more, the business school overall.
Yeah, I'd agree with what Ali said. I think that when we're thinking about AI, the bits to add to the end of all our sentences are not yet. Because if you even look at the difference in DALL-E or ChatGPT 3 when ChatGPT was first released to now, the quality of the images on DALL-E from 18 months ago to now, the growth is just happening at an unbelievable pace, and the quality just going through the roof. So AI is biased now because of the data sets it's drawing on, but it won't be biased forever necessarily. It may be, but it may not be if we build better data sets for these tools to run off and control the data that is being utilized to generate the responses. So yeah, I just think for now we might not see a clear application, but I do think it's coming. But I absolutely agree that these are the big philosophical questions around what is the nature of human experience? How can these tools help us? Do we ever want to get to a point where they're replicating, human experience? And I think these are those big philosophical questions for us as a society.
Oh, thank you, Jo. I'd like to take this opportunity. We've gone over time, which is fantastic, and it shows and demonstrates the interest in these topics. So I'd like to take the opportunity to give a warm thanks to Mahesh, who has had to leave because he wasn't feeling very well, and Dr. Mahina Jha, thank you so much for your presentation and moderating the panel, and a very warm thanks and gratitude to Professor Joanne Ferreira. I hope I've said your name correctly, Joanne. Please correct me if I'm not. And Dr. Ali Delfikar. Thanks so much for sharing your time and your expertise. What we will do is we will share the slides with everybody who attended today. And Mahesh has said that if anybody has questions about his presentation, he's very open to communicating with you. So we'll include his email in the email that we send out.